GM was quite interesting actually, to do a post-mortem analysis. I'd just taken this pawn, and the risk of taking that pawn is that my queen's a bit overloaded now, protecting e5. So if you can attack the queen and win the bishop, that would be great, or even decoy the queen away from the protection of e5. But there's some other things going on in the position. There's a sensitive diagonal. My king has not moved yet to h1, so there's a temptation to use prophylaxis as well to get it off the diagonal. But furthermore, there is a weakening of the dark squares around the king here, and what you end up with, because of all these factors, are very sharp tactical variations which exploit a number of these tactical features. You know, this sensitive diagonal, this overloading of protection for the queen and bishop, and these weakened dark squares. And he emphasises actually the diagonal by playing knight c4, because actually he's unveiling the threat of bishop b6 check. But apparently what I played here was very good actually. Bishop takes c4 after much deliberation, I think, at the time. And okay, he didn't want to like play the check here immediately, and actually that's very bad for black to play the check immediately. In fact, either king move seems to be quite strong. Even here, one of the issues with playing here is that sometimes you know, this check here will be dangerous, but here it seems okay, as you can see from this analysis. Just to give up the rook here, I think. Well, sorry, the queen's attacked, pardon me. The queen's attacked, but even here, sorry, if he takes here, then I've got time for rook e7. Okay, so that, because that bishop actually is also in a way overloaded, protecting these two squares, e7 and f6. And in the game, he took on c4 rather wisely. Then he can't play the check because his queen was attacked. So, and here I'm just more sort of conscious about this diagonal and this check than I am actually about the bishop being a bit overloaded actually on these two squares, well, particularly you know, the dark squares. And in fact, this is a possibility to create an absolute pin from what I think I really identified as a virtual pin, because I felt that if the knight moved, say knight takes e4, then that would be a disaster here. Sorry, after king h1, I felt it was a virtual pin, because knight takes c4, there's knight h6 mate. When this doesn't hang, if it just gets back. Whoops. So king h1. So if knight takes e4, knight h6 will be mate. So I was sort of happy that there was this virtual pin, but maybe again, maybe it's not about winning a battle for a virtual pin. It's trying to win the war. To get a real pin out of this is far more dangerous apparently, and there's a way of doing that in this position. Instead of king h1, to get a real pin on f6, and even if necessary sacrificing the rook, because the bishop's overloaded. If the bishop's drawn away, apparently this is very good for white. Check, and here to keep the queen, you know, protecting the bishop, but also now the knights and priests are potentially carnivorous king. And in fact, I mean, also it's a draw by perpetua if nothing else. Just check again, and where would he go? Or not? Is it not? Sorry, king h8. If he breaks out of the perpetual, then it's okay. That's a different variation. But here, you know, queen f4. This is going to be hard stuff to find though in a 5-minute game. Queen f4. So just offering the rook, you know, with this check. So I thought this is kind of interesting that here it seems better. So say he did check here. King f1 is apparently the strongest, so it avoids the king getting in trouble in the corner. And if black did take the rook here, this is not even considered by the engineers. Knight g4. And really, this bishop's cannot actually help f6 here. It can only help via that, and Mike could just take there. So this is really nasty pin, and it's really getting into the dark squares. So say h5, trying to evict the knight, actually check, knight takes f6 is mating. So I didn't really obviously see this possibility, but this endless ways of winning with an attacking bishop on this diagonal that we're seeing recently. So this adds to the kind of repertoire that, yeah, if you can create like a dangerous pin on this diagonal, even at the cost of material. I mean, he's really unveiled knight c4, so it looked like a very convincing tactic. The prophylaxis move is very tempting to play here, but then he gets that moment to exploit the overloading of the queen protecting the bishop, and he breaks out of any type of pin, even the virtual pin in that line, knight e4, by playing knight g4, because he's getting the gutting thing here is he's turned the tables by getting my prized possession, that bishop. If I move it now anywhere like c3, then e4 is going to drop or something, or he even just takes here, even stronger. He just takes there, and it's just a disaster. So that was a really cool move what he played anyway, knight g4. I missed it because it actually protects against knight h6. So that's the problem with these kind of virtual pins. So maybe there's a case that you could try and generalize from the tactics that clearly it's better to have an absolute pin, and an absolute pin is when the pieces, it'll be illegal for it to move because it's pinned to the king. If you get a pin to the king, it's more effective. So there was actually a way of getting a pin on the king here by playing check, driving the king. So we've got an absolute pin on the knight now, and it can be reinforced with queen f4. Now knight g4 would be refutable with just queen takes g4. There's no danger, of course, of bishop f6 here. He could just take. So basically, I would need to find this move, queen f4, just holding up these two. There's no g5, just take. So it really just holds up these two key pieces, and the bishop cannot afford to come off f6 because the pin can be intensified, as this shows. The interesting thing also, which I was doing analysis with another game recently with similar implications, that sometimes king h1 is not as good. King h1, and you see the evaluation drop, and you might wonder why. It's because my king's getting a bit in trouble here. He can actually sack his queen here, and if I don't play accurately, in fact I'm going to be like worse. If I took the queen here, bishop takes g4, and he's actually got very good position. He's actually better here. So it requires actually great precision to play this position. On queen takes e5 here, then queen h6 maintains an advantage, but it might still actually be difficult to play. But he only had about 26. I mean, this is the thing, you can't play that accurately, but sometimes the positions are just interesting just to analyse anyway. Not that really there was much of a chance to find these accurate continuations, but I just thought it was interesting though that some of the principles involved here of not putting the king in the corner, for this check, so keeping it out of harm's way actually, with king f1 is actually safer than king h1, and this intensification of a pin is quite fascinating. So knight g4. So let's give another example. Rook e8, check, knight takes f6. So it would actually be quite crushing on f6. Yeah, so I don't know if there's any sort of tactical lessons to draw from this position. I hope there was. G6 did seem to cry out for a disaster on the dark squares here, especially. I mean, when I won this pawn, I thought I had a really good chance to win the game, but knight c4 started to be like a cruel shock that my rook on a7 is actually a vulnerability. But in fact, I did have the resource, it seems, to just intensify that pressure on f6. So by playing, if I had played the really super accurate move, check, queen f4. But these are things I mind in 5-minute chess. Comments or questions on YouTube? Thanks very much.